Oh, thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, here we are, finally. We get to the third reading of the Radiation Safety Bill, and I've had the privilege, I think, of speaking on every single reading of this bill, despite the fact that I was not on the Select Committee and I wasn't able to hear any of the robbed of being on the Select Committee. You're quite right. It was a Select Committee. I had been in another term of Parliament, but not during this one. So I didn't get the benefit of the advice from the officials, but I take members' words for it that the officials should be thanked for their very good information that they provided during the deliberation on this important bill, because it does bring us up to speed. I've had it suggested to me that the reason why I've been on the speaking list every time on this bill is that my own children have broken enough bones to have enough X-rays, that I should know enough to speak on the bill on this matter. And I just want to dispel that myth to start off with. Yes, there has been the odd time that my boys have been robustly playing their chosen game that they're passionate about of basketball, and may have ended up having X-rays. But the problem has not been necessarily the issues associated with this bill. Could the government please bring a bill before the House that would stop bones being broken on statutory holidays, please? Because that's the problem I've had, that every single bone that's been broken in our household seems to happen on a statutory holiday, and that's when you have to pay the most to actually get the bone X-rayed. So if you can fix that, please, I'd be very happy. But that's not what this bill attempts to do, and neither should it. It's actually a bill that brings New Zealand's practice up to speed with international best practice. And I do want to support what the Green member Kevin Haig raised in his contribution, that it would be good to think that we had a process in place where, when bills became out of date, when technology had moved on, when our scientific knowledge has moved on to the extent where we now know about dangers that we once did not know about, that there would be some automatic scrutiny of bills that ensured that we didn't just have to wait for some minister's office to notice that the bill had become horribly out of date, or something to go badly wrong before we realised that such a bill had become out of date. Because this bill, the last time it had attention was 50 years ago, and I think on one of my previous contributions to this debate, I may have said that it has been as long in the making as I have been on this earth-ish. Because I never declare my actual age, but I'm sure people can go and look that up for themselves. But the things, why I mention that is that the technological advances and the scientific knowledge that we now have over the course of my lifetime explains to me the reason why I'm a little worried that it's taken so long before we've reviewed this bill again, and perhaps we should have processes in place that ensure that we do that in a more timely fashion. Nonetheless, we're here now. So this bill does repeal and replace the Radiation Protection Act of 1965. So, in fact, it's a little younger than I am, this bill, a little younger. One purpose of the bill is to enable that New Zealand meets its international obligations relating to radiation protection, radiation safety and security, and nuclear non-proliferation under a range of international treaties. So that's important because New Zealand has led, not always, has on many occasions led on non-proliferation of nuclear issues, and so it is rather surprising that it's taken so long to update this legislation. Labor does acknowledge the necessity of updating legislation such as this to keep pace with the technological advances and changes. However, as my colleague Annette King suggested before, and in fact she tried to amend this bill to change the title of it so that it was more correct, because the Radiation Protection Act actually, or the bill that we are debating, doesn't cover all forms of radiation. It, in fact, only covers the ionising radiation forms. So those are the ones that we are familiar with when X-rays are taken. And I guess, yes, alongside accompany my children for x-rays from time to time, not too regularly. The other time that I come across x-rays and the use of them is going to the dentist. And isn't that a bit disconcerting when you're having the x-ray taken at the dentist and everyone else in the room bolts while you sit there and have the x-ray happening? And I often do sit there and think, gosh, should I be bolting as well? Is it that bad? Is the harm that can be emitted that bad that all of the other people in the room are dashing before they go remotely somewhere and push the button? Well, of course, what we now know about x-rays, because in times gone by, those people, the dentist would have stayed there, the dental technician would have stayed there, and they would have been in the same environment. But of course, over time, what we know is that regular exposure, not the irregular exposure of me having an x-ray once in a blue moon, but the regular exposure of those workers in their workplace to that health and safety hazard is no longer acceptable, and so we have these new systems in place to deal with it. So on one hand, our health and safety legislation in the workplace has been a pace of these changes, but this Act, which we are amending today to when we're debating the Radiation Safety Bill, has not kept a pace in the same way. We do support a high level of compliance with international best standards, and we do support our commitments to international treaties. Mr. Speaker, the bill does cover not only the use of ionised radiation, but the transportation and the disposal of ionising radiation, both man-made and naturally occurring in quantities above stated levels. And the fundamental requirements stipulate that radiation use occurs only where the expected benefit outweighs the risks, that exposures must be kept as low as reasonably achievable, and that prescribed dose limits must not be exceeded. So these are important factors when we think about, that it is our children who are exposed to this ionising radiation, that it is actually older people who are frequently exposed to these, because probably they are the two groups who are most exposed to x-rays over the course of their lives. So that is very important, that they are protected with that statement. The enactment of the bill will complete New Zealand's domestic implementation of the International Convention for the Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism and the amendment to the Convention on Physical Protection of Nuclear Material. It allows for the International Atomic Energy Agency international inspectors to be appointed by the Director to undertake activities in New Zealand. And international inspectors must be accompanied by an enforcement officer appointed by the Director under Clause 39 of the bill. So it introduces a new regime of authorisations for individuals or organisations using radiation materials. Mr. Speaker, I was anticipating this being a split call, but no other member wants to share the call with me. So I think at this stage I will just simply reaffirm that Labor supports this bill and commend it to the House.